As it so happens, there's far from consensus on the new Sims 4 Adventure Awaits expansion pack. And what I find so interesting about Adventure Awaits is these mixed reviews might be telling us more about Sims 4 itself and its player base, and less about just this pack itself. But first of all, before we get into those reviews, I do want to warn you that planning getaways in Adventure Awaits is not currently recommended for rotational players. Apparently, this was actually a deliberate design choice. As Sims Community reports, planning ahead in the Sims 4 Adventure Awaits expansion pack doesn't come without a certain limitation. Players who choose to plan a custom getaway in advance will have to stick to playing the same household until their getaway is over. Otherwise, the game will decide to remove the planned getaway from the scheduled calendar. So in short, if you're scheduling a getaway, you have to see it all the way through. If you want to play with this, you can't just switch to another household. Now, I will admit this is a limitation I kind of expected. Maybe that's a hot take. I do understand why people are upset with this, but just knowing how Sims 4 works, it's not too surprising. But definitely let me know in the comments below if you think this is a problem or not, and what do you think about that design choice. But moving on, I now want to go into my survey results. Now, if you've watched any of my videos where I put out these polls, you'll know that Twitter polls tend to be more positive towards Sims 4, and my YouTube channel tends to be a little bit more negative, which I always find quite interesting and slightly amusing. It also goes to show you that your sample and sample size are important, so just remember, just because I put out these tiny little polls doesn't mean it actually represents most of the Sims community. Now that said, I asked, now that Sims 4 Adventure Awaits has been out, if you've played it, how would you rate it versus other Sims 4 packs? Now, I did clarify other Sims 4 packs on my second poll, but I think it is really important to keep that in mind, because sometimes people think of other Sims games. Now, as you can see, the results are completely mixed. It's almost a perfect bell curve if we were to chart this. On this first vote, we had just under 15% say it is one of the best expansion packs. The middle of 36 and 37% said above average or average, just 9% said below average. If you look on the next poll, one of the best made up just 10%, while 28% for above average, 36% for average, and 26 below average. Again, not much of a consensus whatsoever. There actually are some packs where it at least feels like there's more people that really like it or don't like it, and so I just find this really interesting. However, this only tells us so much. Of course, the reason people pick this depends on their playstyle and their own experiences, and overall what they value most. The reception seems to be Sims 4 Adventure Awaits has some good features, but overall just doesn't quite come together the way it should. And I would say this is an argument that Sims 4 packs come out too quickly. In addition, it is Sims 4, and I still argue that Sims 4 greatly limits what the team can do. Now, you can argue, yes, the team needs to do better in terms of quality assurance, absolutely. But one thing I will say is, again, I feel like Sims 4's very autonomy and its base engine so greatly impedes potential so many times, which is why I tend to repeat myself when I say sticking with Sims 4 long term doesn't seem to be the best strategy. Now, moving on though, I do want to go over just some interesting comments on what people are liking and what people are liking a little bit less about this new expansion pack. The first thing I did was take the kids to Camp Gibby. It was so fun, but the thing I love most and didn't know about are those formative moments. The formative moments are actually such a game changer when it comes to childhood Sims. We get so many complaints about kids being boring, and I would get this pack just for the formative moments. So in short, I will agree there are so many Sims 4 packs that just ignore children, and focusing on them a little bit more is just excellent. And one thing I will say is though, it's not just a child pack. By adding gameplay for all ages, this is a more well-rounded pack than some of the ones we've gotten in the past. And because it's an expansion pack, I do feel it is important for it to feel well-rounded. And yet another aspect that Sims 4 packs are often criticized for is the traits. And again, traits in Sims 4 kind of comes down to the core coding. In my humble opinion, although there definitely have been some improvements, the trait system in Sims 4 isn't as impactful as it should be. That said, the new trait is getting a lot of praise, and actually I've seen this from a variety of players. As David puts it, I feel like the new competitive trait is the only one that feels unique in terms of gameplay, like what unique Sims were supposed to mean 11 years ago. It actually changes how you play, and I wish we had more traits like this. Now again, this isn't the only person that's mentioned this. This has gotten praise. I've not seen anyone complain about it. And this is promising. If we feel the competitive trait actually adds some interesting dynamics to the game, could it be we actually will get improved traits in the future? This again is one of my core issues with Sims 4 is that traits are not very impactful or consequential and generally just Sims autonomy, which of course is a deeper problem. Do I think that Sims 4 is going to turn into a magically robust game? No, I don't. I absolutely don't. But it is still really a good sign that they added this and people are really enjoying it. And just as I mentioned earlier that everyone plays packs differently, some people aren't actually focusing on all the features. I'm planning on building and running a completely off-the-grid getaway with my Sim Bobby who is competitive. It's rags to riches. In addition, they also plan to couple it with the natural living skill. Now, this is also of course given it some critique because even though there's tons of cross-pack compatibility, there have been some hits and misses. The biggest one I see, which I reported on in my bugs video, was about horses. Basically, horses just were not added to this pack whatsoever, and interestingly enough, Horse Branch has been left out a number of times. I don't know if there's a real reason for that. Can't tell if it's an oversight or for some reason they're just afraid to do it. I did a whole video on the bugs and performance issues, and not only are there a decent amount of bugs in this pack, but if you already had simulation lag before this pack, I would say just don't get it, or at least don't get it right now, because there are lots of people reporting drops in performance and Sims just standing completely frozen. Again, this is far from universal, but it is something to keep in mind. And there are people, of course, that are right in between. I'm not sure yet. I played 4 to 5 hours at a camp and at Love Highland, and I was a bit underwhelmed. The schedule felt repetitive and boring. Plus, thanks to Love Struck, Sims were constantly asking to move in or get married at Love Highland. I'm not the most creative or imaginative person. I feel like this pack suits people that are. Plus, I found a few things annoying, like me being charged even though I'm working as the camp counselor, being charged for replacing furniture after fires even though it's not my lot, Sims getting jealous at Love Highland even though jealousy is turned off, Sims going straight to bed even if it's free time, and also staff leaving straight after arriving at the lot. So as you can see here, it's kind of a mix of just some little malfunctions here and there and maybe some weird design choices or oversights. Unfortunately, again, what I feel like the biggest problem with this pack is it relies so much on so many things working together, and while this does add some complexity, obviously even the base foundation of Sims 4 has some strange issues. So I caved, starting with the good things. I think the world is amazing. I would imagine it's also a great world to ride in, and there's lots of activities you can do in the world. It feels generally lively. Quest objects are also distinct enough that they made me curious. I had a feeling of wanting to explore this world a bit more. They also mentioned activities like paper crafting, archery, and butterfly collection, and as I said before, I think these are pretty solid features. However, what they think they could have really double-checked is the custom venues. And this, of course, is especially the food-related services are very glitchy, which I did also cover this in the bugs video. They say it's a bit odd to me because things that work on small business lots become very glitchy or don't work at all on custom venues. My top example is Sims not tending the coffee and tea bars. They also seem to be confused with schedules if it changes when you're on the lot. So on the whole, I think it's a good pack, but it would have been better if they had bothered with more quality control. Now I gotta say, pretty much you could say this of any Sims 4 pack, that it has potential, but it could have been better with better quality control. This person though said it was actually below average. I'd rate it below average. The sole reason I got it was because it was advertised on a blog that we could have pets on getaways, but we can't train or interact with them via the getaway schedules. When I noticed the team on the oversight via the bug forums, they moved my bug report to feedback, as if it was crazy wanting something they had advertised from the beginning. Pass and build by is horrible. Tons of functions from other packs are not well integrated. The concept is good, but execution is horrible. While kids' activities are badly needed, it is buggy. Sims don't do with the pack as they would. Too many bugs. To sum it up, buy it on sale or not at all, overpriced and underwhelming. These ideas were cool on paper, but trying to execute them in spaghetti code that's over 10 years old is basically a huge problem. And this is pretty much something I generally agree with. Now, if we look at critical reviews, honestly, there's not very many critical reviews. There's only a handful right now, and to be fair, it hasn't been out for very long. Now, Now, I know some people say, oh, the critics are all bought up. Honestly, I just feel like critics review things differently than players do. But overall, it is getting decent scores. We have mostly scores of 80 and also one of 70, and these are all, of course, out of 100. Most seem to think this is a decent pack. I do want to read through some points, especially this one, which I found kind of interesting. The Sims 4 Adventure Waits is a very subtle expansion, like businesses and hobbies, but with its clever tweaks to Sims holidays and a smorgasbord of other activities, it arrives as a clever twist on a formula that feels just enough different to have an impact. The highest praise I can give to it is that it evoked a powerful nostalgia, with its new kid-friendly camp getaways inspiring me to reflect on my own school-era camps. Elimination goals also make certain getaways very juicy. The romance competition, which could be considered one of the headline features of the pack, is a blast to work through. Each day you will be required to flirt away with new friends in a space designed for romance buffs, providing you with the atmosphere where most interactions are successful. However, they do mention a design challenge of this pack. Being at home let me monitor my bills at least, which is an important consideration when you send your Sims on getaways. In my time with this pack, I noticed my days didn't actually pause when I was on a getaway, so any bills left by the wayside would actually be left undone, leading my power shutting off at one point. And honestly, maybe that is another oversight for this pack. But if we're just talking about adventure weights, personally, I feel there are lots of positives here. The new skills, even just the modular playgrounds, are getting lots of praise, and just actually focusing on kids, and I feel like a lot of this pack is in response to player feedback. At the same time, it is hampered by a number of issues: quality control, the pacing of Sims packs, and Sims 4 itself. So all in all, I would be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about these reviews? What is your personal experience or not with adventure weights? And as always, please take care, and I'll see you in the next video.